Aye.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. Hello and welcome to Short Bus Debate Club. This is Brian Courtney, and as always, Darren Jolly's across the table from me.
Hello.
Today we are going to be talking about vigilantes and vigilantism, which is a complicated topic, as always. I guess all of this shit is complicated, but I don't know. So a lot of this shit that we're going to talk about is rooted back to, antebellum and the Civil War and white people trying to hold blacks down, or white people trying to hold Chinese down, or whatever. And that has been categorized as vigilantism. The race riots down in Tulsa in 21. I can't call them race riots, actually. So there was a riot in Tulsa. You know what I'm talking about?
No,
Yeah.
not specifically.
Okay, so there are all these black people who own their own businesses, and they're rich, at least rich in Tulsa. But they're all doing very well. One of them even owns a fucking bank. So they all own their own businesses. They're doing real well.
1921. Okay.
One of some black kid touches the elbow of a white girl. Well, they're friends from school or whatever, so she's not going to press charges. But all of the poor white trash that surrounded this black neighborhood got together, and some of them were law enforcement. Some of them were law enforcement and KKK. Some of them were just KKK. But between 200 and 300 people, or 200 and 300 black people died during this riot. And the riot was actually white people going in. It was a huge fucking lynch mob. They just went in, and lynch mob might not be the right word, because while they did lynch some people, they shot a lot of fucking people too. And so I personally never considered mobs of any sort vigilantes. But there's something called a vigilance committee. Vigilance committee it's an Americanism that was coined somewhere between 1825 and 1835. And these committees were designed, like I said, to basically stop the Union from spreading. They were anti-abolitionists. They were keeping black people down. They were doing all of this stuff with this vigilance committee. So I don't consider those people vigilantes either. But I'll let you talk for a minute and form a thought.
Well, I mean, you're as you lead in, you're posing like the peculiar question, right? Is that generally, like we can look at Batman, we can think about situations in a sort of like fantasy space, Dexter, all these various different places, and identify, and we'll get into that more in the pop culture side of things. But Dexter had rules, that he followed when he conducted his killings, and the people that he was doing it to, it wasn't just enough that they were bad; it was that they would take life under certain circumstances. So, but having said that, when we get into when we cross the realm of fantasy into like individuals acting, in a space where the perception is that justice doesn't exist, the institutions that exist are incapable of providing it, whether through their incompetence or the way that everything gets bogged down in bureaucracies and whatnot. But individuals come to a point in their lives where they decide to function in a way that transcends the power of the state. Like this, I mean, Max Weber said uh, one of the things that makes the state is that it has the authority to. It's the only authority that is permitted to commit acts of violence in whatever form, whether it's through an army or domestically. Um, but obviously, uh, people have perceived themselves as needing to step in that moment, you know. But so, like, the point being that the context of what it is that constitutes a vigilante is going to be incredibly subjective from the beginning, you know. I mean, if like if those individuals did that in 1921 to what I mean, they were calling that was a really like you said, the area where the blacks in that area were living. They were affluent. They were succeeding. They referred to where they lived at as the Black Wall Street. I mean, and like you suggested, it's like a lot of people that were not wealthy that were they came in, and if it so like if somebody came in and killed those white people in that moment, I would be more like from my perception that would be, you know, a more an act of vigilantism. But the fact of the matter remains that's something that's very subjectively grounded.
Yeah, and I think that that's probably why we need to maybe, and dude, I hate to say this shit because I don't want more laws to be created. But I would like to see any laws that we have tightened up a little bit. So one of the things that I tried to do for this show was do some research. So I did a search of anti-vigilante legislation by state.
Mm-hmm.
None except for at the federal level there was a anti vigilante stalking law, and that was basically created for those wackadoos that fucking track down abortion doctors at Planned Parenthood and whatever other abortion clinic. And who knows, maybe they stalk the patients too. But so that law was created to protect that small fucking segment of the population when apparently the rest of the country can just do whatever the fuck they want. Um, and it's just weird to me. So I would like to see them tightened up a little bit because I did my concealed carry class.
Mm-hmm.
And in the concealed carry class, they said that most states have laws on the books that allow for deadly force to be used in the protection of you or someone else. But they said you need to make sure and be very careful if you do this because there's a chance you'll get charged with murder. Um, Now, if someone's breaking into my house or breaking into my car, coming at me with a knife on the fucking street, whatever, I should be able to shoot that person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of the states say you've got to make some sort of act to get away or hide or whatever. The deadly force is a last result. But even with that being said, there are so many vagaries built into that. Sorry, I said vagaries and I thought, oh, so there's
Don't be a dick. Just
it's
keep
it's
going.
just not fucking, it's not tightened up. There's too much ambiguity there to where maybe one person can get away with it and another one can't.
Well, I mean, how do you? So, and like part of my concern with the way that that's being there's a difference because when you explain, the first thing that I think about was the Johnny Wynn episode. You know, the Vietnamese guy that was living in Vegas. He had a headshot. Those kids came in there. He told them to leave. You know, he tried to be like, guys, just get the fuck out of here. You know, and then the kid hops the counter and he didn't end up killing him, but and as far as I know, he never got charged with anything. He never got charged with anything at all. So, but Vigilante, I don't see what he did. I mean, he's defending himself. If you're defending yourself on your I don't think that's the same kind of thing as you have to be kind of like going out somewhere, trying to whether and it doesn't have to be Robin Hood, but that sort of like concept where you see a tendency inside of a social system that you think is not functioning appropriately, so you go out and will yourself to affect that thing to try to change the direction that it's going in for the most part. Or maybe there are other more perverted. I mean, when we talk about this deeper, I'm going to say some things that people identify, in my estimation, when they're doing them as vigilantism. And I think it's important, and I'm going to say this once, I'm not going to say it over and over and over again. When I identify these things as acts of vigilantism, I am not agreeing with their subjective disposition, but I am of the belief that when people are committing these incredibly aggressive, stepping out of the everyday acts, that they see themselves that way, and that there's a cultural
No, keep going, dude.
there's a cultural tendency inside of the United States, especially, that sort of drives the logic of committing these acts, and that's why they sort of are like happening uh, all over the place, and people think that it's justifiable.
No, see, and that's what I was going to say is that there's justifiable homicide or self-defense, and then there's vigilantism.
Okay, so we're creating a line then.
No. I'm
Okay.
just saying in my head that that's where the line is. So, dude in Vegas, not a vigilante.
Yeah.
He was defending himself and he was defending his store.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody tries to carjack me and I fucking shoot him.
You're defending.
I'm defending myself
and your property.
Yeah. But so here's the thing, and so when I was doing my research and nothing came up except that anti-stalking law, I ended up reading a couple of articles on the American Bar Association, and I read that Hill article that I told you about.
About Kyle Rittenhouse.
So they mentioned specifically in that article that there are, I think, 21 states that still have these laws where you can defend yourself or someone else with deadly force. They mentioned specifically South Carolina, Georgia, and Ohio. And in Georgia, it's on the books that you can defend yourself or someone else. If you see someone committing a felony, you can take action by arresting them, which I always thought that nowadays a citizen's arrest was kidnapping, but you're supposed to try to basically get them under control and take them to a judge, which who the fuck is going to do that? But if you see them committing a felony, then you're allowed to take action up to and including deadly force in Georgia, which is fucking weird. And in Ohio, they have a similar law, except now it's a concealed carry state. So now everyone is going to be carrying guns, and there is that protect yourself and your property law, which I think you should be able to do that, but that's not a vigilante. However, the way that both the ABA, the American Bar Association, and whoever wrote that fucking article on the Hill, not writing it on a hill, but there's a website called The Hill.
Yeah, The Hill. The one that, they do Rising, and that's got Bree and the other guy, Robbie Sauvé on it. Yeah, The Hill, yes.
Whoever wrote that article was saying that defending yourself with deadly force is being a vigilante. Now, if I go back to the Vigilance Committee...
You said the ABA defines it as...
They didn't define it, but they brought those circumstances in and kind of said, like when they were talking about vigilantism, they were talking about these states with concealed carry laws and the Make My Day law, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So they didn't specifically say, yes, these are vigilante acts. But again, if you go back to the Vigilance Committee or just the definition of vigilante, then, it's to be aware. It's to take the law into your own hands if you're being watchful. But based on, again, these weird vagaries, then that means that Omar in The Wire, who went and shot Mikey in his hind parts because he wouldn't give up the fucking drugs, Omar was following that Georgia type law.
Did you say that they shot him in his hind parts?
That's what Omar said when he was in court, because they took him to court one time. He was actually a witness for the prosecution, but the lawyer on cross-examination was trying to,
Soccer would be very impressed with this.
Question his credibility.
The depth of your reference to Omar's testimony.
Who?
So Sagar and Crystal do the and so like Crystal, she got married last Saturday or Sunday or something like that, so she's been gone all week. So this guy Ryan Grimm did an episode with 2 episodes of Sagar, and then Emily Jasinski did. So they're the ones that do the show on Wednesdays, but they filled in for her during the week this week. And the first on Monday, Sagar, he fucking loves The Wire. He just makes this reference to The Wire, and like Ryan picked up on it immediately, and he's like, at least I got somebody on here that finally understands the depth of the most wonderful TV show ever.
Well, so Omar's entire job was stealing from drug dealers, money and drugs. That was his job. Or that's how he made a living. But that
he made a living shooting people in their hind parts.
Well, right. So the lawyer for the defense was trying to fuck with his credibility, and the defense.
The best offense is a good defense,
He was fucking with his credibility, and so he said, you went to jail for attempted murder, and he said that wasn't attempted murder. I shot Mikey in his hind parts because he wouldn't give me his drugs. So, but based on the Georgia law, selling drugs is a felony. If you see a felony taking place, you can take action. So Omar.
That's fucking weird, dude. There's a lot of people that live in Georgia. How do you fucking deal with the legal positions when it comes to that then? Because anybody could, deputize themselves.
Well, and it was even worse because it just said if you were suspecting that these people are committing a crime.
There's a lot of slippery slope there.
Fucking A, dude. So, but again, I don't okay, so if someone carjacks me and I shoot them, justifiable homicide, self-defense, whatever. But if someone breaks into my car and I know who it is and I call the cops and I tell them, I know who fucking did it, which I'm never going to call the cops. I hate those cocksuckers, but I know who did it.
Is it necessary every time to fucking poke the bear? I mean, we're poking the fucking bear with like a fucking cattle prod here most of the time, dude. You don't gotta just. They wouldn't even answer your questions the last time we called them and tried to just get some basic information on how they would deal with things if we decriminalized drugs.
Right. But I think that was because we're not big enough, not because they heard the show.
Oh, but they fucking knew you by name the 4th time you called. They're like, Brian, we know. They answered the phone and said that. They didn't even they're like, motherfucker, we know. We're not going to give you a fucking comment.
I know. Okay, so I don't hate cops. I love you all. I'll buy you a donut and a coffee next time I see you.
You just totally breached that divide in that moment. That's just so touching. So incredibly touching. All right, Omar.
So if I call the cops come and I say, I know who did it. I saw him do it.
I'm with you. I'm right where you're at.
And they don't do anything. And I say, fuck that. I'm going to take care of this myself. And I go and I fucking break his legs or I shoot him. whatever the case is. Maybe I fucking handcuff him and try to take him to a judge. That's a vigilante. What those guys did in Arapahoe County in the 1930s because of the Italian thing, that was a lynch mob. That wasn't.
What, give me a little bit more specifics there again.
So someone was accused of killing this really popular Italian guy. He was in jail at the new Arapahoe County Jail when they had built it.
The person who was accused of killing that.
Yeah, well, and probably did do it. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there, but the people in what is now fucking Rhino,
Republican only?
the River North District. I don't know why the fuck everything has to be in syllables or just anyway. Everything's Lodo, Rhino, Soho. Yeah, we've got to speak in fucking just break everything down into 2 syllables.
YOLO.
So he was accused of killing this really popular Italian, was in jail. Apparently the other Italians weren't real happy about the way things were going, so they went down to the Arapahoe County Jail, and there were lots and lots of them.
No, so because that was when it was on Main Street.
So I'm guessing that's where
probably.
It was.
Okay.
And
they
went
down
there.
His ass out, and they wanted to take care of business at that point.
They got him out of jail because there's probably 2 sheriffs on duty at the time, and there's a fucking huge mob outside. So they said, "Here, have him," and they fucking hanged him. And then they brought him back up to the neighborhood and hanged him again. He was already dead.
But they had to make the point. Yeah, I get it. Just like when they took William Wallace and cut him into pieces and put his body parts in the 4 corners of England.
Right.
But it did not have the effect. Carry on.
So that again is a lynch mob.
But is there? But that. It's the same thing though, on some level. I mean.
That's why we need to tighten up the laws.
But I don't think that this is so much a point that I don't give a fuck about legal distinctions when it comes to this stuff. What I do give a fuck about is, so the first day that I ever went and took myself up to Black Hawk to play poker by myself, when I didn't go up with my dad, I went up by myself, was, I think it's April 20th, 1999, whatever day it was that fucking Columbine happened, right? Okay, so, and like I said a little bit ago, I don't identify mass shooters as vigilantes. But I do think that when people get to the point where they commit that type of action, we can try and reduce it to that their minds were fucked up and they were mentally disturbed. And there's no doubt that if you get to the point where you're going to take an act like that, you've got some issues in that moment. But I think that things were happening to these people that other people didn't understand, and they made a choice to go and do something. And in their minds, they saw themselves as creating justice in a moment where there was a void and justice did not exist. I think this is true for people that commit those horrific acts of shooting. I think the ones that happened. There were 2 that happened in Serbia. I mean, this is no longer even just an American phenomenon. You have one in Australia. You have a big one in Christchurch, New Zealand, a few years ago. You have 2 in Serbia a couple of weeks ago. There was another one that I was forgetting about that was a big one. Whatever, but it's just becoming like more and more common. And I remember when I wrote a 4-page letter and I sent it to the Denver Post. They actually printed like 4 lines out of it, but they took all this shit out of context. And my uncle called me and said, "Darren, what the fuck, dude?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, dude. I'm never sending anybody anything again," because they edited the shit out of it. And of course, I didn't think they were going to put a fucking 4-page letter in there anyway. I didn't think that was what I was, but I was concerned that there were social issues that were not being dealt with. That if we chalk it up to video games or bullying or a number of different things where you're trying to reduce something, but it's part and parcel of like a much more deep social issue. And I think that now that we're some, 20, almost a quarter of a century removed from that activity, and we still haven't dealt with it in any meaningful way at all. You continue to see. I mean, last, the one in Allen, Texas, they went in. This dude went in, and this guy, the guy that did the one in Allen, Texas, last couple in the mall a week and a half or so ago, he was Latino, but he was a Latino for white supremacy. Like, he had this big old fucking swastika on his chest, and he had this big old SS tattoo on his arm. And
That's
there,
somebody who's really confused.
there is an underground movement. He was not. This is not an isolated incident. He is not the only person out there that has a Spanish surname that identifies himself along these lines. Now, these other individuals, I haven't seen them walk into a mall and kill 8 people. Leave this kid. His whole family's dead. Like, 3 people in his family died. He's like, a youngster who's, not going to have a family anymore. But like, you're not going to create a legal category to deal with why it is that these things are happening. You aren't going to create a legal category to define what happened on January 6th. I think that a lot of those assholes saw themselves as vigilantes as well, and that is an incredibly obnoxious thing in my mind. But having said that, they're fitting that sort of like basic category where there's not a it's like the system has failed you. And I'll get into this more later, but the root of the United States, when you think about shit like the fucking Declaration of Independence and what that turned into, there's this that whole stupid comment that Nicolas Cage makes in the movie National Treasure, where he's like, this gets to the heart of it, and it's the whole part about how if you have the ability to do something, then it's your responsibility to do it. I think that there are a lot of people out there that see extra legal acts of aggression as a way of creating justice in a space where they believe no justice exists.
I think that I'm not disagreeing with you. I think that there are systemic things that need to be fucking repaired in order for us to truly move forward in a harmonious way.
I can't even hear you say the word harmonious. That was like laughing so hard that I pee a little bit in my pants.
Yeah, it was.
It was hard for you. I saw it. Yeah.
so we're moving ahead in harmonious way because we have fixed all of the systemic issues. And I mean, our doctor, we'll call him.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, a doctor that both of us know was, because I was talking to him about homelessness and crazy people and all of this, because it doesn't matter why I was talking to him about it, but he said, I've been a doctor for a long time, and basically at both the federal and state level in the mid 70s, funding for mental health care got cut. I mean, slashed back to almost zero. So that, I could see helping to some degree, but there are still other things that fit into this where we may need to talk about it some more. And the reason that I say that is because I mentioned the Omar thing, right? Going and shooting drug dealers. Well, there are a lot of neighborhoods, generally speaking, most of them are minority neighborhoods, but there are neighborhoods where the cops won't go, or the cops won't go at night. There are neighborhoods where 911 calls, you're put on fucking hold for a really long time.
Get up and get down. Late 911, where's the late crown? Yeah, I got you.
It's a joke in your town. So a further definition of vigilante or vigilantism is one who takes the law into their own hands because the system has failed in some way, shape, or form, which is also what you said.
About, yeah.
But I'm not even talking about that greater system where education is part of it and healthcare is part of it and all of these huge systemic things. I'm talking about when you call a cop or an ambulance because someone you know was stabbed or fell down the stairs or whatever. No one fucking shows up. So it's no wonder Omar does what he does. It's no wonder that there are these people that don't call the cops and they take care of things themselves.
And you're allowed to do that in a criminal way, but you're not allowed to do that in a developed social way. Because if you do it in a developed social way, then your name is Huey Newton and Bobby Seals, and you're threatening the reproduction of the system and the way that it's functioning, and they get rid of you.
Well, and my next comment probably isn't going to help that whole thing. Like, I mean, we could be branded as like Huey Newton, but so what I was gonna say is, so besides Coop and that systemic issue, I was also talking to a friend of ours fairly recently, and she was talking about guns. And she said that while she supports the Second Amendment, she doesn't want guns because she wants to feel safe. And I said, well, to be fair, it's not just guns. I mean, you could have knives or bombs or whatever. And I didn't get into the whole thing with her because I was too focused on guns. But this kind of goes back to our safety episode. And that is that safety is just kind of an illusion. But the way that they've defined these laws is it's okay for corporate America to fucking rip everybody off. But if Omar walked into like Home Depot in Georgia, where that fucking law is, if you see somebody committing a crime, if they walked into Home Depot and started shooting people for committing felonies, then
committing felonies in Home Depot?
No, I'm using Home Depot as an example because they're fucking headquartered in Georgia, not because they actually commit felonies. But let's say they were a bank or any other institution that rips people off on a daily basis.
Committing a felony.
Omar
a white collar felony or something like that.
Anything.
Yeah, okay.
Let's say Omar goes in and says, fuck you, I'm done, and shoots him. Those laws are there not to keep us safe, but to keep corporate America safe. So if anybody did that to Home Depot or Bank of America, and Bank of America is not headquartered in Georgia, but any of the corporations, Facebook, also not headquartered in Georgia. If they did it to any of those corporations, then you could guarantee they're going to jail, whether you called it fucking self-defense or justifiable homicide or anything else.
The two big defailers are not part of the same legal structure that the rest of us all are. Just like they're part of the social welfare, corporate social welfare club, and the rest of us have to play by the rules of hardcore capitalism or something like even worse because they maintain their socialist disposition and we're just sort of like playing capitalism over the scraps.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely a different so like but in that context, right? And I was just trying to like MSNBC immediately after Trump won the presidency, they blamed people for voting for Jill Stein instead of Hillary. They look down their nose at all these different people, and they didn't ever like sit there and examine or look at anything. And when I see the January 6th thing, I don't ever see them do that either. They don't look, and they just think these people are they don't respect the rule of law, blah 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 blah. They don't ever think about, like when they put the kibosh on the Hunter Biden laptop thing right before there's no critical analysis with regards to anything that they're doing with regards to this stuff. Now, coming into 2024, you have two people that have announced their candidacy as Democrats that are big names, RFK and Marianne or
The
Williamson.
self-help
Yeah,
writer.
Williamson. Yeah. And they're both actually polling in a lot of polls in the double digits right now. And all of the people that are basically DNC insiders, again, they stand up on their pulpits and they wag their fingers, telling everybody to get in line. This is the way that things are going to work, and you take what we give you, and you can fuck off. And there's this whole question that everybody kept like bringing, not everybody, but the people that are more on the fringes say, well, these people want a primary. If they want a primary and this is a democracy, then we should have a primary, and we should have debates to where people get to table their positions, their policy positions, their thoughts, their vision of the future publicly, and that because that's the way the democracy works. And because Biden's 82, and you don't want to fucking dumb an 82-year-old that's showing dementia, in some form or another, whether it's Alzheimer's or something else, to be standing up there. Yeah, he's just basically supposed to be Weekend at Bernie's, Bernie, standing there where everybody else is making the decisions, and we're not allowed to involve ourselves in a discussion. On the other side, Trump has also suggested that he doesn't want to have debates. So there are all these situations where this dude Laswell, Harold Laswell, he wrote a book in the 20s or 30s. It was like a big sociology book, and he talked about catharsis, like the whole point of like democratic systems and the way that our system functioning is that when people get stressed, when they get angry and they're trying to find a way out, if you have like a good functioning social existence like a democracy, then it creates release valves, right? So that things don't, and it's really catharsis, but at some point in time there has to be a little bit more than that. He didn't really say that, but I think that there's probably a truth to that. But in relation to this, when I see the January 6th activity, when I see the way that Black Lives Matter was functioning, when I see the way that these moments where people commit heavy-handed extra legal acts and sometimes horrible fucking acts, like they do when they go in and they shoot up a school, or they shoot up a public a restaurant, a mall. Like I get the sense that when you have the people that are at the top in those spaces where they're, for all intents and purposes, totally they're functioning, they have room to move, they can talk shit, they can do things, they can affect outcomes, and like we're allowed to affect outcomes so long as we get in line and pick from the options that they give us, your whole Republican thing, right? um, but what happens is we're socially constipated right now. I mean, like totally, and like if we don't fucking come up with a really big fucking social enema, this shit's just going to keep getting worse, I think. And you're going to have people that don't see a way of doing anything, and they're gonna do stupid shit acting out because they don't know. Well, I'll get more into like why I think that is later, but because this is not like a where do you attack at in this system? I mean, there's no center, there's no circumference, you know, it's everywhere. Where does power really exist? I mean, it's like it's all encompassing. So how do people act out? Well, you know, they pick the place that's in their own backyard, and then they do some really weird shit.
Well, I mean, sometimes they go to where they think the power resides. Was it like 1995 that fucking dipshit from, I think it was Boulder, drove to Washington, D.C. and was going to try to shoot Clinton?
I don't remember this. You could teach me something.
I can't remember. Anyway, he ended up getting arrested
But
out front, and the president wasn't even there. I mean, that's poor planning to say the least. Which goes back to the fucking education and mental health thing with the systemic issues. Now, you mentioned Trump and you mentioned Biden. Um, I want to say one thing, and then I kind of want to circle back because I think we're talking about important stuff, but we're kind of straying away from the vigilante thing a little bit.
Not by my definition, but we'll come
Okay,
back
no,
to it.
that's fine.
We'll come back to it.
I just so again in that fucking Hill article, or maybe it was the ABA one, but they talked about the January 6th thing, which again I don't consider that vigilanteism, except for maybe I don't know. I still can't. I can't even say that those guys were vigilantes. But
because it matters how much you think they're vigilantes more than anything.
well, it doesn't. But I'm just telling you because I have the fucking mic, bitch. So
you should have just picked. You should have done the mic drop then, dude. You should have just
So they talked about Trump and how he is bringing all of his followers into line, and how the Republican Party is making it harder for minorities and people to vote, and basically saying that they're trying to get the right people in the fucking House and in the Senate so that everything will go Trump's way. And I think that may be fair, but the Republican Party has been trying to make things more difficult for minorities to vote since at least Clinton, if not longer. I mean, I know that our congressional districts have been redefined, or I should say redrawn, at least 3 times that I know of here in Colorado. And part of that is because of the population, so we had to add a seat. But part of it is also because, they were saying, oh, well, fuck it. Those people in that neighborhood aren't going to vote for us because they're black, brown, or whatever. So let's move the line to 20th Street, and then we'll be okay.
Gerrymandering, of course. Yeah.
So they've been trying to do it for a long time. So I don't like that fucking orange wig wearing shit bird, but I can't blame the way that they're treating voters on him. Because they've been doing it for a really long time.
Predates him.
Yeah.
Even when he was a Democrat and, talking about pro-life all over the place.
Right. And I mean, Bush, too, was doing something similar. I mean, he was trying to figure out how to write his way into where he could stay president forever. I think he even wrote a fucking executive order to that degree. So they've been trying stupid shit for a while because they're rich, power-hungry cocksuckers.
The vice president's daughter, she announced her candidacy the other day.
Great.
Liz Cheney. So, because we need another Cheney in a presidential.
Well, position. And she's running in Wyoming.
She doesn't. She's not. She lost her seat. She doesn't have a seat anymore.
But she announced her candidacy for president.
Yes. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I believe you.
I knew she was doing some exploratory stuff. I want to make sure that I'm not talking out of school, but yeah, she's a fucking lunatic warmonger.
I just
fucking bitch.
Don't see that happening. I wonder if she'll shoot one of her friends in the face.
It really makes you. I mean, because she's not gonna. I mean, there's nobody that's gonna the only person who actually had a shot at she's announced she's got had an ad in New Hampshire.
I don't know. I think I'd rather vote for Liz Cheney than the fucking wig wearing Cheeto. Not that I would vote for either of them, but
I think I'd vote for him.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, because I just am so sick of the war money, dude. Like I'm tired of it. I think that he's just as bad as she is. But I mean, like I'm not going to. I'm going to vote green. I mean, I'm going to do what I did last time. Even if Colorado was a battleground state, I would still vote green
No,
compared to the other
I'm
side.
not voting for any Demopublican.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I think I would, if I did, I would rather vote for her than him.
She's too hard. She's so hard. Like the one thing that if Donald Trump is president, the intelligence agencies get so concerned with what he's doing, they can't do their regular shit. So they get caught up in that battleground. And I like the fact that they have to like tip their hand on all the stupid shit, the Steele dossier stuff and like just fucking jackasses.
Well, considering we don't even know how many fucking employees the NSA actually has, to say that the intelligence community can't do their regular shit because they're worried about Trump is probably at least slightly
If
false.
that if that is true, we are so fucking ruined. Like how do you blow? I mean, this like it's funny. Like we're if that's true, we're worse than the Soviet Union ever was, dude. Like by leaps and fucking bounds.
We are worse than the Soviet Union ever was. And so, dude, like they always showed the pictures, when the wall came down, of people in bread lines. Like, well, they showed the people in line for bread when it was a communist state, but then the wall came down and they showed pictures of people like the bread line pictures were longer because there were so many more people in line now. If our fucking quasi socialist fucking corporate uplifting, we're gonna
Pseudo democracy.
we're gonna fuck over the entire citizenry constantly, but in order to make sure that they're all completely placated, we're gonna make them fight amongst themselves by saying this one's black and this one's white and this one whatever. Um,
Republican or Democrat or any other
right.
division,
We're
fake
gonna we're
division.
gonna put them into all these categories to make sure
Yeah.
they fight amongst themselves, so they don't give a fuck what we're doing. But if our government does crumble, and I know that was a long name for our government, um,
You're going to have to create an acronym there.
if it does, then our bread lines are gonna be so much longer than they ever were in the fucking Soviet Union. I mean, dude, they're already pretty fucking long right now. Panhandlers and fucking homeless clear up to the rooftops. I mean, they're everywhere. Um, so whatever. Now, I have no fucking idea. I'll let you talk for a while, dude. I mean,
I talked for a really long time. I mean, the only thing, like with the shot that I took at you, I mean, the one thing that I'm really trying to point out is that, uh, like, when a person is going to be, when they take it into their own hands, like a vigilante is a very personal kind of concept. When a person makes a choice to, and there's a lot of stupidity out there, and also like the other thing that I was saying is that, like our friend who you were referring to earlier, I think, when you were talking about the guns thing, um, she wrote that strategic institutionalism thing. And I think there's something really, really important in the idea that when you create like uh, things like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and then you develop this concept of nationalism, this sort of imaginary community, as it's been talked about in the past, when I think it's talked about the most accurately. Um, and you have the rest of the world looking at that and they're kind of buying into your bullshit.
bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. um, the fact that when a person's born here and they're brought up in it here and you have like religion on one hand and then you have like civic duty on the other, and the sort of merging of the two at some point in time where the document in its raw legal form is over here, but the way that people relate to it is on this other side. They don't really understand the ins and outs of what goes on with the Supreme Court when they argue points and deal with things, the nuts and bolts, the whether or not it's true to the form. I mean, what the founders,
Well, most of them have never even seen a decision.
but they don't want to see a decision.
Right.
They just have this reverence for the thing itself, right?
Jingoism.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's more than that. Like
Chivalry.
they'll literally like they get together on the 4th of July and firecrackers and guns and and this is not just a conservative thing. This is the idea can be just as much the function of illiberal liberalism, because that's what it is now. There's nothing liberal about the way that the fucking Democrats are functioning at all anymore. And the jingoistic, the way that the right functions when they go to the, you know, I was listening this morning to Sagar said this thing that was so interesting. He said it's like a Rorschach test, right? Like the people that love the Democrats, they see like these internal contradictions of the system. And the people that hate the Democrats and that are Republicans, they see they're not wrong. Neither one of them is wrong, but they're only looking at it from one of them sees the candlestick and the other one see the two faces like looking at each other. But they don't understand that this sort of like space that they maintain such reverence towards, whether it's a liberal reverence towards it or that the freedom rhetoric, the way that it's played out in that space, um, that strategic institutionalism creates a sense of not logic, but a sense of emotion that creates a space for people to do things in a very reactionary way. And they will start to see themselves, whether it's the 1%ers or the fucking or the 3%ers or whatever the fuck they call themselves. What are some of those? One Republic. What were some of the other? What was that?
I thought One Republic is a shitty band. I thought
it is a shitty band, but there is a group out of South Carolina called One Republic. They're vigilantes against migrants. So they go down to the border in New Mexico and Texas, and where there's not border patrol, they catch the fucking people trying to get across the border and then turn them into the border patrol. So the 3%ers, One Republic, the Oath Keepers, all these fucking weirdos, like I mean, by definition, identify themselves as self-anointed political actors. I mean, the very definition of a vigilante, and it's rooted in that ethos that connects to that strategic institutionalism, where they look at the Constitution, the Second Amendment, and, freedom of the First Amendment's all about freedom of speech. You don't even fucking say anything about the Establishment Clause. They don't fucking know. And look, guys, I'm not totally dogging on you, but I do think you need to look a little bit deeper into these things. Don't just get all emotionally charged. Pick up a fucking book and read.
If you do want to see something really hysterical, go out on the 4th of July and instead of watching fireworks, just watch the people. I mean, seriously, you're talking about 40-year-old people that are just fascinated by sparkles in the fucking sky that have happened every year since they were born.
How perfectly metaphorical is that, though? I mean, the spectacle. They don't. I mean, it's not anything real. It's just this fantasy that people have inside of their head about what they think a country is, in spite of the fact that every real notion that was tied to it in the beginning is gone.
And the real fucking irony of all of that
if it ever existed,
that the vast majority of these people are hovering right around the fucking poverty line. And the reason, not the only reason, but some of the reasons that they're at the poverty line are or could be fixed by the same government that's placating them with a fucking fireworks show.
A lot cheaper to do a fireworks show than it is. A lot easier too than solving problems. Who'd fucking want to solve a problem when you can buy a real nice what are those things called?
Sparklers.
No, not the sparklers. The ones that you
bottle rockets.
No.
I don't fucking know what you're talking about, retard.
You hold them and they shoot the bigger bomb things. I've never been a
From
big
now
firework
on,
person.
we're just gonna call them doof, doof, doof.
You're a fucking
The
asshole.
handheld doof, doof,
Yeah,
doof.
that's
Right.
what I'm trying to say.
Cannon?
I mean,
I have no
you
fucking
don't know
idea
anything
what you're
about
talking
fireworks
about.
either.
No. I
Oh,
quit watching fireworks when I was like 15, dude. And I've had girlfriends, and like Aaron and Karina used to always try to drag me to fireworks shows. Dude, they're so fucking lame. I'm not 6 anymore. And you can't placate me with shiny shit.
not any shiny shit.
No, I don't like gold either. Or silver, platinum, titanium, aluminum. I like aluminum because it holds my Coke.
And
But
because it's what makes up the
right,
hat on your head,
it stops the NSA from getting to
reading your
my
mind.
thoughts.
Yeah.
So you know the one.
Roman candles, dude. Roman candles. I can't remember words sometimes.
I didn't
words,
think
they
those
just run.
shot anything. I thought it was just a great big fire thing coming out of the end. Hence the name candle.
No, they shoot things up in the air.
Oh,
And you can hold them, and you can like point them at people, and
right.
just shoot a fucking Roman candle right in your head, which is really what I'd like to do right now to you.
One time on the 4th of July, we were all getting hammered at my sister's old house in Aurora, and Josh went to the back of the yard and was pissing, and I was like, "Don't piss in my sister's yard, you fuckhead!" And I took a bottle rocket and lit it and launched it at his.
He's one of those kids that would like never let go of the lawn darts. You know, he'd want to play lawn darts until he fucking took one in his melon. You know.
No, because they still had lawn darts when he was a kid.
I know, but I'm sure he probably took them home.
But it didn't thin the crowd, is what I'm saying.
Give it time.
I guess, it all works on percentages. He was just one of the lucky 46% or whatever.
54% took a fucking lawn dart in the head.
Whoa, why the fuck did they take it off the market, dude? I mean, I'm guessing a lot of kids had to die for that to happen.
Well, I remember we had a set of lawn darts. We never played with them. I mean, my mom, I think, took them away immediately because she's like, I had already broken my arm 4 times at that point, and Dustin had gotten fucking stitches 600 fucking times. So she's like, I'm not leaving this with you fucking dumb kids. You kill yourselves enough without fucking throwing a big ass metal thing in the air and fucking having it come back down.
Trying to make it in a fucking circle this big.
Yeah, some dipshitty. Whoever fucking came up with that game, they must have really wanted. It was they called it the herd color. That's what they did. It was the Soviets. They're like, we're going to send these to the people in America, and they will fucking start to die. Yes.
It was
democracy would it?
It was their version of a smallpox blanket.
That's exactly that's it.
Free lawn darts for everyone. Now kids have bean bags.
A different kind of revolution.
We could do smallpox bean bags.
No, it has to be like the game where they, you'd have to have something where people are playing bean bags.
Yeah,
cornhole, like you would
right.
put it.
Isn't that just a bean bag though?
Okay, so but times you got to add the cornhole to the bean bags, the bean bag and the cornhole.
Right, because otherwise it would just be like a paperweight.
And if you took the cornhole and you painted on it the dude that Omar shot, and you could shoot that guy in the hindquarters.
Hind parts.
Excuse. I'd never seen it.
You're missing out.
I'm sure I am.
Okay, so we know for sure that there are some fucked up problems from the top down. I mean, and I'm guessing that even our listeners know, but you, knowing me for as long as you have, know that I believe that education needs to be fixed. And if we fix that, then that's part of the system. Healthcare, especially regarding mental health, and just our general policing of the people needs to be fixed, because regardless of what our government says, police brutality really is a fucking thing. And it really does need to be fixed. And if we need to fucking erase that blue line a little bit, to make it to where, some civilians can monitor what they do, if we need to completely erase it and paint it another fucking color, whatever the case is, we need to fix that so that we have control over these people. But the fact is, they don't want us to have control over them.
No.
They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, which is keeping their fucking knees on the throats of the populace.
Isn't it kind of ironic that a lot of the people that are thin blue liners are also people that would do the vigilante thing on behalf of the 1%, 3%ers, and the oath keepers, and
Well, it's also, I mean, they could have very possibly been Dylan Klebold at Columbine.
yeah.
That one dude down in Dallas, because that was when they started changing the definition from terrorist or like a terrorist cell to a lone wolf terrorist.
Is that the guy that was up on the?
He was in the parking stretcher. I believe he was a cop.
The one that was shooting people from way up on high. That
Yeah.
was what? When was that? Was a fucking long time ago. When was that? That was before I was born, I think.
No.
Oh, okay, not that.
You're thinking of Charles Whitman
I have no fucking idea.
at the University of Texas who was shooting from the clock tower.
Yeah, the clock tower.
That's a different thing.
Okay.
So, and I know we're mixing mass murder into this stuff because you're trying to illustrate the fact that they may have felt like they needed some justice somehow, so maybe somewhere in their head they thought that they were vigilantes. That is what you're saying, right?
I'm saying that that's a part of it. There's another degree to it though. I mean, it goes even a little bit deeper than that, in the sense that in a lot of ways a vigilante is really just a subjective disposition in relationship towards exacting justice when you in a space where you don't think justice exists. So if that dude went up on that clock tower, you know, for whatever reason, he took his kids away, he got fired from his job, he fallen down, kind of, and he says, and it's not just an act of, I mean, if it's just an act of revenge, that's one thing, but if it's a way of trying to like bring the justice uh, into balance a little bit more, then because it's not. That's why I was talking shit to you earlier about I don't consider. It doesn't matter what I consider to be like vigilanteism is something that's very subjectively located when a person,
No, I get that. But the reason, at least the reason I said we needed to tighten up the laws a little bit,
uh-huh.
isn't because I necessarily want to go out and be a vigilante, although there are some people that I would
Everybody, I'm sure everybody fantasizes
having
that sometimes.
some corrective action against. But it's because, I'm a big believer in the justifiable homicide self-defense type thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think we kind of have to take it on a case by case basis and see how much danger we're actually feeling at the time. But I'm not necessarily gonna fucking shoot somebody for stealing my car stereo. I'm not gonna shoot somebody for taking my DVD player. I don't have a DVD player, but
What's a DVD player?
or my computer or my cell phone or whatever. But I do feel like if I felt threatened, that I should be able to defend myself, vigilante or not, and not end up with like a fucking 20 to life sentence. And that's 20 years to life.
What other numerical space could a person have assumed?
Beats the fuck out of me, dude. But I learned a long time ago when I'm doing like my sales pitches and shit, not to use acronyms because not everybody knows what the fuck they mean. And if there's any chance for confusion or ambiguity, clarify. So I did that.
Okay, because it could have meant 20 hours. I'm going to get put in prison for 20 hours.
Right. Time served.
20 seconds.
To life. Because, I mean, if they throw you in the can and then say, so cops come and they say, all right, you shot somebody. Maybe you go to jail and then you get out and they take you to the arraignment Monday morning and the judge says, okay, it was justified, you're out. So 20 hours to life. There, that's the way I just fixed that.
I think that I don't think that tightening up the laws is ever going to help you. Not in the current state that we exist in right now, because that presupposes that you actually have a system that can function in a thoughtful and developed way. Somewhere between juries and judges, I'm not very impressed with anything with regards to the system right now.
No, I get it. But see, and this is another problem. And I'm not saying that this is true. Well, I am kind of saying that it's true. So somebody, let's say Liz Cheney, just for fun, because we were talking about her, and her dad actually did shoot someone and get away with it. Because it was
a buddy of his. Yeah.
It was a hunting accident. I shot him in the face and it was an accident. So let's say Liz Cheney shoots somebody. And then let's say I shoot somebody. Same exact fucking situation. Same state. Everything's the same. She's going to get away with it. There's a strong possibility that I'm going to prison. And the difference isn't the color of her skin. It's how much fucking money we've got in the bank.
Yeah, because she can hire an attorney that's super fucking dirt. It's like a super. Yeah. Well, thank you for making my argument for me then.
She probably knows the judge.
She probably gave him a reach around when she put the fucking dildo on and fucked him in his ass.
You know a lot more about Liz Cheney than I do.
I thought she might have gone to that one guy's island. You know, the one that they killed. Now they found like Noam Chomsky went to his island.
Yeah.
What the fuck? No, dude, come on, man. I'm not disappointed in very many people, but I got to tell you, no, I'm kind of disappointed in your Epstein. Yeah. Right, that's what his name was, right? Epstein. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that she probably did. I know that.
I don't know that she did. I was just totally talking shit.
Well, no, the thing is, and she may not have, because a lot of that stuff is misogynistic type stuff, you know, like the only women there are to be objectified and used. Yeah. In Oz, they talked about some place in California that was a similar type of thing, where all of the power players in the fucking United States would show up like once a year and go there for a month, and you know, drugs and fucking debauchery all around, you know, 24 hours a day.
Massive size white shit.
Yeah. So I don't know. They may have maybe changed some parameters, or maybe Liz Cheney came up with her own fucking thing.
But honestly, like, you know, I don't ever have problems with the idea of your prescriptions, right? Except for the fact that you circumvent the whole like structural. Like, I want to be able to say that we tighten laws and things are going to work out better. I want to say that if we deal with education in a more sophisticated, developed, you know, inclusive, make sure everybody has an equal opportunity, like a real equal opportunity kind of way, then it would, but I just don't think, I don't even think we even know where to start with, because every time we talk about, you know, so a second and a half after the Allen, Texas thing happened, where that guy, where the fucking dude with the Spanish surname and a swastika on his chest and an SS a huge SS tattoo on his arm. 1.5 seconds after that, what did the Democrats say? assault rifles ban, magazine ban, I mean, it's all the same thing. Like, as if somehow or another, if you take away the legal right for a person to purchase an assault rifle and you limit the size of a magazine, then suddenly these mass shootings are going to just disappear.
Right, and that's why I tried to explain to that friend of ours that, safety is an illusion and that it's not just guns. That if someone is willing to die themselves or go to prison and kill a lot of people in the process, then they're gonna fucking do it, regardless of how it's done. I mean, run somebody over with their car. Are you gonna ban cars at that point?
I didn't bring that up though to make an argument just about banning guns.
I know.
What I brought it up is that there are prescriptions that are developed immediately in the aftermath of something like this that never deal with the greater social questions that are causing them to happen in the first place. Period.
Yeah, I get that, dude. I know what your argument is. You're saying that everything's broken and we need to fix it, and then that may fix the whole problem with the mass
I
shootings
don't know
thing.
that that's what I'm saying.
Well,
I don't even think that we know how to fix it. I don't think that we take enough time to stop and look at ourselves and think about the situations that we're in. I don't think anybody wants to fix it.
I don't think we know how to fix it either. But I think that obviously mental health, I mean, I would need to look at the numbers again, but I mean, a shit ton of fucking homeless people are schizophrenic or have some other extremely fucking dire mental health issue. Um, so if you fix mental health, then maybe these schizophrenics or massive depressives or whatever it is, maybe don't go and shoot up a mall. Maybe. I'm not saying yes, it's going to happen, but it would help with the homelessness thing, at least to some degree. I mean, everything, again, there's no such thing as total safety. So no matter what we do with these crazy people, some of them are still going to fucking be crazy and do crazy shit. No way to fix all that. Maybe, but that would be kind of drastic. Give them a bunch of lawn darts, stick them in an arena, and let them play lawn darts with each other for a while.
That's what they should have done in January 6th. Passed out lawn darts.
So, um, I don't know, dude. I'm not saying that any one thing or even all of the things that I talk about fixing are gonna fix the entire problem. Uh, I don't know if the vigilante thing can be fixed, period, because it's been going on for a long, long fucking time. I mean, people feel wronged. People see that, you know, the law didn't actually do anything to help them, so they took care of it themselves. Whether it was tossing tea over a fucking the side of a ship, or tossing people over the side of a ship, or hanging people from the mast, or whatever. Um, we've been doing it for a long fucking time.
You want to hear something funny that has nothing to do with anything that we're talking about right here?
I always want to hear something funny.
So I think it was last night. CNN did a town hall. They had Trump on, and CNN is just like MSNBC. At least in terms of my category, CNN and MSNBC are very similar in the fact that they try to project. They're like the Fox News for the left, right?
I get it.
And they're both bad, like totally fucking horrible with regards to the way that they approach this. And they kept, just as one instance, they were trying to sort of like relitigate all the shit that Trump did while he was president, right? The first question that they came out and asked was about Stop the Steal, right? They did a focus group at the end of it, and it was 10 Republicans, varying different ages, and they said, "Do you think that it's prudent for Trump to be focusing on Stop the Steal instead of talking about policy issues for 2024. And the response that the guy gave him was, well, when your first question is, do you still believe that the election was stolen? Why don't you ask him questions about policies for right now and not make your first question about 2020?
Right.
But they're not even sophisticated enough. Like, they think that, like, they're going to present him as the same person that he's always been for all intents and purposes. You know, grab a pussy, you know, it was stolen from me, blah 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 blah, you know, walking the line with regards to the abortion, you know, because he is pro choice, but he has to have the pro-lifers in his corner to kind of like keep everything moving. But all he did, and the last question that they asked him, does anybody feel worse about Trump? Does anybody feel better about Trump? Not a single hand was raised for either one of those. Does anybody feel the same? And they didn't look at each other. They didn't wait fucking to watch what everybody else was doing. Everybody knows who this guy is. They know what they're going to get out of him. But these fucking people think that somehow or another, if he stands up there and says something else about grabbing a pussy, there was a case that was tried against him in this last week about whether or not he raped this lady, whether or not he sexually assaulted this lady, and something else in relation to that. And it was in jurisdiction where most of the charges were not criminal charges; they were civil charges, and they found him guilty on the civil charges issues, but not on the rape one. The rape one was the actual criminal one. They asked him about this, you know, and he basically said, "I don't even know who this person is," you know, blah blah. Yeah, you know, she said that she wanted that we ran into each other in front of Bergendorf, whatever that fucking place is, and that we hit it off, and she found an empty changing room, and we were doing hanky panky in the changing room. He's like, I mean, it's all the shit that he says where you'd think that any normal person doing it would be opening their mouth and sticking their foot in, but because it's Trump, like, everybody accepts him for his vulgarity because he stands and mocks everything that the left-wing media does, you know. But CNN and MSNBC just keep doing it. MSNBC said you should have done this, CNN, because you gave a platform to a despicable person. How do you not give a platform to a person who's the forerunner for you don't have to like him, but the guy's running for president and he's got the bulk of, you cannot deplatform that person. You can try, but you can't do it.
Right.
I just don't understand how it's like they never learn, and they're never gonna learn.
Well, they're trying to keep their fucking demographic listening.
So weird.
I fucking hate it.
I listened to them talk about it on Breaking Points just because I don't have time or patience.
You know, that is another thing that we could probably fix that would help the vigilante thing, is this fucking runaway fucking bullshit entertainment news stuff that they do, where they end up trying people in the media. But we are at an hour and coming up on like 20. Okay. So let's wrap this one up. We got at least another hour of the vigilante discussion coming up soon, and then the following two will be vigilantes in pop culture, what Darren said earlier.
Fun. There's a lot of good stuff out there for that. I think that they actually deal with it in a more interesting and sophisticated way than the way it plays out in real life.
Well, and they give the definition, I think, the picture that everybody has in their head of what a vigilante is. You know, it is Dexter, it is Batman, it is Spider-Man.
It's the fantasy. It's the real fantasy. I mean what I said, real fantasy.
The fucking Avengers, you know, based on whatever, Civil War or whatever it was. So yeah, but we'll talk about that in the pop culture one, but then we've got the second half of this one coming up soon. So we will talk to you later. You can get us at shortbusdebateclub at yahoo.com.
720-334-ROLL.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah.